Hi, I'm Dempsey Plot, and this week I'm reviewing Solo: A Star Wars Story was directed by Ron Howard and boasts an all-star cast consisting of Alden Ehrenreich, Emilia Clarke, Woody Harrelson, Donald Glover, Joonas Suotamo, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Paul Bettany. And the film acts as an origin story for the legendary Star Wars character Han Solo. In the film, we come to learn how Han Solo came to be the person that he is when we first meet him in A New Hope. Or at least we see the events that shape him into the person that he's destined to become. We also get to see how he develops relationships with characters such as Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian, and those origins are definitely interesting to see as well. This film was fun, it was definitely enjoyable, and one of the things that I particularly enjoyed was Alden Ehrenreich's portrayal of Han Solo. Now, I've personally been a fan of him ever since I saw Hail Caesar. In fact, I think a lot of people were a fan of him in that movie, and I think that's partly why he got the role in the first place. But there's just something about watching him on screen, the way he approaches his characters. He's just so fun to look at, and he does the character a lot of justice. He is just as charismatic, just as humorous, and just as genuine as Harrison Ford was when he played the character in the original Star Wars franchise. And I know a lot of people are kind of divided with his performance, but like I said, personally, I think he did a really good job. Now, another person who has a lot of fun in this movie is Donald Glover as young Lando Calrissian. And I know I've discussed this before, how much of a huge fan I am of his. I love his show, Atlanta on FX, and I'm also a very huge fan of his rap persona, Childish Gambino. But I think it's very important to note that this is his first lead role in a mainstream movie, okay? For those of you who followed his career before Atlanta, yes, he had a semi-lead role on the show Community, and for those of you who have followed him long before that, like I have, he was a part of a comedy troupe called Derek Comedy back in the day, and he did lead a movie called Mystery Team also back in the day. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with him as I am, this is the first time we're seeing him up front, up close and personal. And I think that's huge. And I think for his first lead role in a major mainstream movie such as this, he does a really good job, as I said before. He, and I understand why the original directors of this, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, only thought of him for this part. I could literally not see anybody else playing this role other than him. And when you watch the movie, you'll know exactly what I mean. He does such a great job at being a young Lando. He's cool, he's hip, and he's just got so much charisma. Yes, Alden Ehrenreich has charisma, but the minute that Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian comes on screen, all eyes are on him. He has such a commanding presence in this film, and I think it's a sign of good things to come in his future. Now, the style in which this film was directed and the vision that Ron Howard brings to this film is very reminiscent of the original Star Wars films. There are some really magical moments in this movie, and there are some very exciting sequences. However, this film had several problems for me. The first of which were tonal issues, and I'm not saying that the film has general tonal issues. I'm saying that the issues with tone in this film actually come down to character. And the character that I'm referencing specifically is Woody Harrelson's character. He plays a character in the film known as Beckett. Now, early on in the film, something happens to his character, and I don't really want to specify what it is. I want to be as spoiler-free as possible. But when he should act one way, he doesn't. And for those of you who have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, and you may have theories as to why that is, because of some of the other stuff that happens to him over the course of the film. But he, to me, seems like the most disconnected person. His actions and his emotions in the film really just vary on some sort of weird spectrum. They don't really make a lot of sense to me. And I think, like I said, that's why the tonal issues for me were such a big problem, because they stood out specifically with his character. Speaking of characters, there were a lot of characters that I would have loved to see a lot more of, and I do hope we get to see a lot more of as the franchise continues. But there were also a lot of characters that annoyed me, particularly L3. Now, L3 is Lando Calrissian's companion in the movie, similar to how Chewbacca is Han's companion. She's the co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon when we first meet her, and she is a female droid. While I really wanted to like her character, she had this weird motivation in the movie that seemed really out of place, and it actually contributes to the tonal problems that I was talking about earlier in the film. And yeah, what started out as something that I was really looking forward to with her character ended up being something that just totally annoyed me. Paul Bettany's character is another character that kind of annoyed me in this film, and I don't mean annoyed me in the same way that L3 did. It more annoyed me because it really didn't amount to anything. Now, in the trailer, he's teased as a villain, and don't get me wrong, he definitely is the villain of this movie. But he never does any villainy things. And what I mean by that is that we never get a true sense of who he really is. We never even get to see him leave his lair or his room or whatever space that he works out of, which just seemed really odd because I'd never really seen that before. I'd never seen a villain just stay confined to one space over the course of a movie. I thought that was very odd and very not villain-like at all. And that was also, like I said, one of the things that annoyed me because it's almost as if we know he's the villain, but we never get to know any more than that. We don't know why he's the villain or what he's truly capable of. Yes, we get to see him do a couple of really evil things over the course of the movie, but he's just labeled as the bad guy, and us as the audience is just expected to take it. But I'm sorry, I really wanted more from him, and I was expecting a lot more from him. I had such high hopes for this movie. And don't get me wrong, I am a huge die-hard Star Wars fan. I loved Episode 8, right? And I know a lot of people are divided on that film as well. Now, I don't hate this movie, but I was just expecting a lot more from it, and I wanted to like it a little more than I actually did. I was looking through online forums about this film, and I wanted to know whether or not my feelings were validated for this movie. And I got a lot of validation, in fact, more than enough validation. But the one thing I consistently kept on seeing was people saying that this film was unnecessary, that this film did not need to be made. And I agree in that respect. It did not need to be made. In fact, I was perfectly fine with not knowing who Han was before he met him in A New Hope. In fact, I don't think anybody really needed to know who Han was before he met Luke or Leia. And another problem I actually had with this film was that it relies on exposition heavily to connect the dots, to teach us things about Han that we were actually better off really not knowing. Disney took the initiative to make this film, and when they took that initiative, they should have known that this would have been a big deal to fans. That there was no way that they could fail on this, because as I said before in this review, Han Solo is one of the most legendary characters in Star Wars. And I would say probably one of the most legendary characters in film. And this film failed. It failed me, at least, because I was expecting it to be much better than it actually is. It has the potential to be much better than it actually is. But the problem, ultimately, is that the stakes are too high for a character who we know is going to go on to live for the next 30 or 40 years. This film should have had lower stakes and way more adventure. But besides that, it's still a really solid movie. And for that, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars.
Nice.
I can't help but feel like some of the drama behind the scenes of this film helped to contribute to some of the issues that I had with this film, particularly the tonal issues. And I can't help but wonder what the film would have looked like had Phil Lord and Chris Miller stayed on the project. I mean, it couldn't have been that bad, right?
No, Mr. Stay. Mr. called Jar Jar Binks. Mr. your humble servant.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like this video, hit the like button, and if you're not subscribed, I would ask that you please subscribe. I post new videos weekly. I will actually have another movie review for you guys in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. And next week, I know I said this week, but next week, I will have my first ever TV show season review. And the show that I'm reviewing is... well, you'll just have to wait to find that out. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can. I'll put all my links in the description. I'll put my Twitter if you want to see me tweet. I'll put my Instagram if you want to see me Insta. And I'll put my Stardust if you want to see my other movie reviews. Stardust, if you don't know, is an app where you can actually review movies and TV shows in less than 30 seconds. Actually, they're just 30-second long movie reviews and TV show reviews. But if you're curious to find out what it is, you can click the link below. You can be my friend. You can sign up using my link below. It's really cool. It's a really cool app, really cool community. I highly recommend you go check it out. But yeah, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I'm Dempsey Pilat. Take care.